Welcome to the Black Women's World Podcast. Welcome to Black Women's World, where Black women vibe and thrive together. And if you ain't a Black woman, you'll get to know at least one. Because this Black Women's World, my Black woman's world, is whatever I say it is, simply because I am. So welcome, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers. We're here for you. Much love and peace. All right, recording in progress, but all privacy is protected to the best of our ability. I will try not to name names for anonymity's sake. For those of you, or if you want me to name your name, you can say it. But when we get ready to do our group discussion, of course, we turn the recording off because I want you to feel comfortable in sharing with that, however you feel to share. At our Peace Place for Me community meeting this morning, I am pastor and chaplain and the spiritual director, TracyMac. Peace Place is a kingdom connection where we expand your spiritual growth to edify, encourage, and educate. That is my desire. And we're a virtual interfaith, inclusive, and purpose-filled community embracing the love of God. Peace Place, if you choose to sow any seed into Peace Place for Me as a ministry, feel free to do so. I will put the giving links or the sowing links in the chat. No pressure, but I pray that if you choose to sow, you will be blessed exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or think, because I am good ground, no doubt about it. And we give to other entities, other nonprofits, and the work we do in the ministry. But anyway, I'm glad to be here with you this morning and also sharing in a podcast perspective. I like to do something that I heard somebody say, people say kill two birds with one stone. I like to say feed two birds with one hand. The birds ain't done nothing. Don't be hitting the birds. But I am glad to be here with you this morning. And hopefully you are glad to be here. Last time we talked about, and I shared with you a place I wanted to be able to come from, whether I'm speaking to people just in this community, but I know that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So when I hear back from people, either their feedback from a podcast or on a social media platform, what we have to say here in Peace Place is touching people all over the world, literally. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I feel the responsibility and the privilege to be able to do so. And last time we talked about a peace patrol and a love posse, and I had somebody call me and say, "Okay, what does that mean? What you talking about?" And we also talked about Micah in the Christian Bible, Micah chapter 6, verse 8. When he says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee." What does the Lord require of thee? It's really simple: to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. That's it. That's it. And we kind of touched on also Mark 29. And for those of you who choose to read along with me, Mark in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. And I say that often because we have people who listen who have their other sacred texts. I will be reading briefly from the New King James Version. But in Mark chapter 12, just to set it up for you, Jesus he spoke a lot in parables. And a parable is a story to bring home a point. Lisa Nichols taught years ago when I went to Speak and Write to Make Millions, a pattern that helps you convey a message to people, where you tell a story, then you make a point. You tell a story and make a point. And Jesus was doing that long before Lisa Nichols taught it, but the formula is wonderful. I use it all the time. You tell a story, you make a point, because story, you get to control the narrative, and stories spark other people's story. You tell a story and it helps somebody reach in. I see somebody shaking their head. It helps somebody remember their own story. And so at this point in Mark chapter 12, just to go back a little bit, they brought Jesus had told the parable about the vine dressers. And after he told the parable, here they go. And down in verse 13, they sent him to the Pharisees and of the hold on, I lost my spot. The Herodians, they wanted to catch Jesus in his word. So they kept asking him questions, trying to trip him up. They asked him questions about taxes. They asked him questions about this, that, and the third. They were trying to trip Jesus up. And it came to a point where one of the scribes asked, down in verse 28, if you read along with me in Mark chapter 12, verse 28, he says, then one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, perceiving that he had answered them well, he asked Jesus, which is the first commandment of all? They were trying to trip him up. Remember, you got the 10 commandments. Which one is the best? Let's see what you say. Let's trip you up. And Jesus answered unto him and said, the first of all the commandments is, hear, O Israel, listen up. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second, like it, is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There's no other commandment greater than these. So the scribe said to him, well said, teacher, you have spoken the truth, for there is one God. There is no other but he. And to love him with all the heart, with all the understanding, and with all the soul, with all the strength, and to love one neighbor as oneself is more than the whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. So the way Jesus answered the question, he couldn't say nothing else. He knew it was true. And no matter what we do in life, I know there's a lot of bickering and arguing going on, as it usually always is, especially in religion and politics and so many different areas. If we can just simplify, if we can just love God with all of our heart, all of our mind, our soul, our strength, and when it comes to the practicality of what that actually looks like, we demonstrate it when we love our neighbor as ourselves. We get to demonstrate. How do we have these commandments? We love our neighbor as ourselves. And I begin to think about this peace patrol I'm talking about. Can we patrol our own lives and help with the lives of others? Can we do so in peace? Can peace be the guide? Can peace help us along? And I was thinking the other day, and here comes a parable. I was thinking the other day, and I had to write it because I got emotional. You ever gone back to think about a story, and it's not that it's sad, but you just relive it and you begin to see the colors of it. You see the textures of it, and you remember, oh my God, I forgot all about that. And so I want to read this more to you, and I'll probably look up too, for those of you watching me on camera. I don't want to disrespect you looking at me and I'm not looking at you, but I just feel to really read this. And I remember walking to school like other children back in the 70s. As a 5-year-old, I was a latchkey kid. That was very common back then. And for my SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers listening from other countries here in America, or at least the places I've lived in America, a latchkey kid is a child who is young, that has been given the key to the house to let themselves in after school, or to let themselves in from wherever they're coming from, but mainly after school. So it was kind of common back then. Plus, we lived on a military base, so I felt, that was probably an added layer of security. And that was a whole nother time back then. Y'all know, we ride our bikes and be gone for hours. Back then, won't no seat belts. You threw the baby in the in the back window. You cut yourself, they try to kill you with some mercure cone. And so it was a different time, but I was a latchkey kid, and my dad had to work. He was active duty military, and I'm glad my dad is on here this morning. My mom had to work, and she always listened to Peace Place and Black Women's World podcast, but she's not on today. My siblings weren't at home. They are 4 and 5 years older than I am, and they were heavily involved in team sports and after school activities. So I wore a beaded necklace, the silver necklace. Matter of fact, it came from one of my dad's old dog tags where it had been taken off because he needed something with some strength. And so the key to the house was put on that, and I wore the necklace around my neck tucked inside my shirt. And so I'd be home, and whatever. So my mom worked at the bank, and sometimes she could come home during her lunch break, and she would come home and if we had it, she would leave me a nice sweet treat. You know, she would always leave me a sandwich when I didn't want it. I wasn't a big eater back then, but if she left some cookies, or y'all remember they don't taste the same anymore, but the little Debbie oatmeal pies, or the little Debbie raisin pies, or the Vienna finger cookies, or windmill cookies. You know, if we had a good treat and she left it on the counter, you know, I'd let myself in, and I had this way. I didn't take my key from around my neck. I would just take the key and pull it into the doorknob. And those who can see me, I just lean in and turn it and open it. And so if I went in, you know, you couldn't go in the living room. We had one of those houses, you know, you couldn't go in the living room. Plus we had white velvet furniture in our living room. So you couldn't go in the living room. So I would beeline straight to the kitchen to see if my mom left me a snack. And if she left me a snack, I would, you know, you didn't wash your hands when nobody looking back then. You know, if she left me a snack, I would go and get the snack and eat the snack and do my little homework and color or whatever. But some days she didn't leave me a snack, and I was scared. I was scared to go in the house by myself. It was creaky, and I wasn't but 5 years old. And this happened from the time I was 5 to about 7. But at first it was scary. So sometimes if my mom didn't leave me a snack, I would, you know, use the key to go in the house, open the door, look in the kitchen. If she didn't leave me a snack, and if I saw Miss Pat's kids walking home, I knew Miss Pat was home. So I would go back, I'd take the key off my neck, go put it in my room, go back outside, close and lock the door, walk to Miss Pat's house and tell Miss Pat I forgot my key. Miss Pat would say, "Come on in here, Suge." She was the first person that ever called me Suge. She, "Come on in here, Suge," and she would, you know, take care of me right along with with her children. And she called my mom, "Tina." That's my she. "Tracy forgot her key. I got her. Don't worry about it." And so I that worked. You know, my mom would say, "You forgot your key." She wouldn't fuss or whatever, but "You forgot your key. Make sure you have your key around your neck, Tracy." And so as I got older, I got less and less scared, and the snacks didn't matter as much because, you know, by then I could fix my own little sandwich, you know, after, you know, 6 or 7 years old. And plus, I kind of began to love the quiet of the house. My house was a little noisy, and and then my mom gave me permission to turn on the stereo. I could go in the living room to turn on the stereo and use her albums, and that's one way that music became my first best friend. Y'all have heard me say that before. And it wasn't so much as scary being in the house. What was scary to me back then was walking to and from school by myself. And it was a long walk. And at one time, you know how if you think back in memories, or if your parents or grandparents tell you, "I had to walk 5 miles to school in the snow, 10 feet of snow." And half the time they'd be exaggerating. And one day we had gone down to the beach. It's just about 2 years ago during the pandemic, and we'd gone down to the beach, and I said, "Let's ride around." And I rode around in that area, Havelock, North Carolina, Cherry Point, and I had the luxury to go and visit every house I ever lived in. Every house I ever lived in. And it was about 9, because between my dad moving and then when I became an adult, me moving to a house I bought and townhouse and this, that, and other. And 2 of the places where I used to live no longer exist, either from construction or renovation. They no longer exist. But I went back to 5 Hyde Road, which is this house where I was latchkey at. And I told Owen, I said, "Let me go to West Havelock Elementary School," which was the elementary school I went to that I had to walk to. And all this is going to make sense in a minute, y'all. And I said, "Let me see how long that walk was." So he dropped me off at the school and sat in the car. And I said, "I'm going to walk it." And I walked it, and I took the same path I would normally take because the streets were the same, even though the houses had been renovated. And when I GPS 5 Hyde Road came up, but the number 5 is no longer that house, because back then those were single dwelling homes, and these are now adjoined, kind of like townhouses. And I can't remember what the house number was, but it used to be 5 High. So GPS took me right to the street and right to the proximity where the house was. So we drove around to the school, and I said, "Let me see how long." And when I walked it at a pretty, you know, not brisk, but I was kind of strolling, looking around the neighborhood, seeing what still looked familiar, because it had been, oh God, years since I had, think about it. I was 5, 6 years old then, and probably 53, 54. So years. And I just looked around, and some things, everything looked different, but yet some things looked the same. The sidewalks were still the same sidewalks. And it took me 13 minutes and 38 seconds at my big age to take that trek. And I thought about what my young 5-year-old legs must have been and the decisions that my parents had to make to put me in that situation. I wasn't the only latchkey kid in the neighborhood, I'm sure, or in, anywhere else. It was kind of common, but it was a little walk. But I remember when I would walk to and from school, if I could sneak my little lemon twist. If y'all remember, it's a little toy called a lemon twist, and on one end was it was a circle where you could put your ankle in, and then it was a long string or a long piece of plastic, tube like plastic, and on the other end was a lemon or something else. But when it was a lemon, it was called a lemon twist, and you put your foot in the little hole, and it sat loosely around your ankle, and you do this little hop skip thing, kind of, you swing the thing all around, and when the lemon crossed, you hop over the lemon. And so to make my walk faster in my mind, if I could sneak my lemon twist in my backpack, then I could hop skip all the way to school with my lemon twist. And you didn't realize as a child that it was, you just didn't know. You go back and you think, but you didn't know then. You were just doing life. And so, but I do remember it wasn't so much going in the house by myself. What was scary sometimes was the walk, because there were certain places in the way that you walk that there were no crosswalk lines, and you had people speeding through the neighborhood in the morning, those carpool parents or those military people going to work, and they'd speed. So at that age, you don't really have the wherewithal to judge distance and speed and crossing. So crossing the street was so scary for me, and I had about 2 or 3 places where I had to cross, and it wasn't a long cross, but it was still a crossing. And I'd look both ways and look both ways again, and look both ways again and cross the street. And coupled with that was you got neighborhood dogs. And there was one dog, I don't even remember his name because everybody used to just call him Sean's dog. And Sean's dog was this big Doberman pinscher that would just get out periodically. And Lord knows, if you if you got chased, especially on your bike, boy, you better get going, because he was Doberman pinscher and those teeth proved it. And so I was scared because Sean's dog lived not too far, and you didn't know. And then there was this little pesky Chihuahua that would get out. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. And I thank God I never became victim of either. And then with that distance of walk, nobody ever really messed with me. But I'm gonna tell y'all something as it pertains to even the song that we let out with this morning, Safe in His Arms. And taking that little, and it probably took me a little longer than it did at 5, than it did at 52, 53. But taking that 13 minutes and 38-second walk, what would give me a total sense of safety and peace is when I would get to the part of the street where there was the crosswalk, and I'd see the safety patrol. The safety patrol in that little bright orange sash they'd wear with the little badge on it. I was so glad to see that safety patrol. And it wasn't my goal to get to school. It was my goal to get to that crosswalk, because I knew the safety patrol would help me. Not a teacher, not the adult, but this little safety patrol. And one in particular was this little chubby little white boy. And I never knew his name. Never. But whenever I would see him, I would smile. And I just remember that feeling of, and yeah, I got a great memory. Anybody will tell you. Sometimes I can't remember why I came in the room, but when it comes to history, I'm your girl. And so when I saw him with his little chubby self and his little orange sash, his belly kind of lobbed through the sash. And I never knew his name, but I just loved to see him. And one day I saw him getting bullied. I saw him getting bullied by about 3 or 4 boys, and they were just messing up his hair, and they weren't causing physical hard injury, but it was injuring the spirit and the soul and even the psyche, the mental trauma. And they were just pushing him and shoving him. And I saw it the one time, and then later on I'd see it again, and I saw it again. So him being bullied was standard. And I remember thinking to myself, do they know that he helps me and other kids across the street at two different crosswalks? Does he know he helps? Do they know how happy I am to see him? Do they know what it means to me? Do they know safety patrols don't control traffic? They guide people. They have the power, but they don't control the traffic. They can just stop it for a minute and let the people go. And I thought about that thing when I was thinking about, can we be a peace patrol? I wondered if those bullies knew how smart he had to be a safety patrol, because I was too young to be a safety patrol, but I inquired, can I be a patrol? You had to be I think you had to be a fifth or sixth grader. You had to make good grades and you had to take a safety patrol class. And I thought to myself, do those bullies know that he has to be smart? Do they know he has to come to school early? Somebody has to bring him to school early to be in place, to be a safety patrol. The peace that this little boy gave me, and I don't think I ever knew his name, but I loved him so much that sometimes out of my feeling guilty, because who was I going to tell? Back then snitches get stitches, and we didn't have the things set up in place now where you report bullies and all of that. That stuff is new. Back then snitches get stitches. Back then I'm a little black girl and the boys that were bullying him were other white boys, and he's a white boy in fifth. What am I going to do? So for maybe my guilt or maybe my compassion, I would save him some of my lunch snack and give it to him after school, as he sometimes would even hold my hand to help me across that street. At the first one, that was the crosswalk coming out of the school. Then the other crosswalk was a little farther down to lead the children to whatever, the direction of whatever street they were going to walk on. So he had to help me twice. And sometimes he'd hold my hand. And I don't know if there was just this unspoken relationship we had, but I thought about the safety that he provided for me and the peace that that safety gave me, that as soon as I would get to the second crossing and cross the sidewalk and slip that lemon twist on my leg, sometime I'd look back at him and just go skipping, because he helped me. He helped me. And when I thought about, this is the story that came to mind when I thought about, can we be a peace patrol? Can we be a safety patrol for somebody? Somebody who may need to cross the intersections of life. Can we do that for somebody? And thinking about who, and if you just reminisce, who has been a safety patrol for you? Is there anybody you can think about in your life and say, yeah, I felt at peace with them. I felt safe with them as I was crossing that intersection, as I was going through circumstances, trials, tribulations, a transition of any kind. Can you think of anybody that has been that to you? And I challenge you, if you know where they live or know of them, drop them a text, a phone call, a card in the mail to say thank you. Thank you for being that person that helped guide me to safety. You couldn't stop the traffic in my life for long periods of time. You couldn't stop the cars from, going, you just had a moment where you could say, "Hold, let this person pass through." Did somebody protect you and guide you? And maybe they were going through some things like the little boy who was going through, they were being bullied, but they still showed up to protect or help you. There's some areas in our lives where we get bullied, where we even bully ourselves in our own thoughts. Sometimes we let other people say things to us that they should not be able to say. Sometimes there are decisions, there's dreams we know we should be living, but the fear of not doing so, what will people think? That's a bully. That's a thought bully. You're bullying your own thoughts. I write in my book, The Book of Purpose, the New Testament, about the thought bully. Sometimes the thought bully will wear a bald pattern in your mind and say things to you that ain't nobody else ever said. Make you worry about things that'll never happen. So sometimes but can we feel safe with ourselves? So much so that it spills over and people can feel the spirit and the energy and the vibe to feel safe with us. Can we be a peace patrol for somebody? And can we say thank you to those who have been a peace patrol for us? I hope my story brings up some good stories and some things in your mind. And we have the privilege in our Peace Place community to have a discussion about it, and to maybe even share some ways where we have been a peace patrol to somebody or a safety patrol for somebody, and maybe ways that somebody has been a peace patrol or a safety patrol for us. Because it takes us living cohesively. It takes us having a spirit of the gospel of inclusion to include people, this boy didn't know my home life. He didn't know I was lying to my mama saying I was locked out. I didn't know what he was going through at home. But when we met at that sidewalk, things changed and our beliefs didn't matter, just being helped. And I think he got something out of helping me and those other students. So again, just remember, think about whose peace patrol can you be and who has been a peace patrol for you. I'm grateful and I love y'all for real. I'm TracyMac. Peace.
An Amazon best-selling author with an Art Book Club Incorporated 5-star rating and your self-discovery companion, TracyMac is setting positive change ablaze with her 3 incredible books. Looking for an interactive resource that reveals how to strategically overcome obstacles that can hinder you from developing your purpose and consistently enjoy the limitless benefits of living your best life? Well, grab your copy of TracyMac's book, The Book of Purpose, The You Testament. Through true stories, real-world examples, and thought-provoking questions and principles, you can make your best dreams a reality and achieve big goals that sustain peace in your life. Your solution has arrived. If you are ready to live an amazing life of change with sustainable results and measurable success, get your copy of 1 or all 3 of these awesome books where fine books are sold today to start your journey.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, Coaching and Training Services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what SistaNistas do, on purpose through mission with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my SistaNista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.